Hello and welcome to Win Over Depression. I am your host, Tamera Trotter. This podcast is dedicated to those who suffer with a mental illness but try every single day to feel better. It's also dedicated to those of you who know someone who is suffering with a mental illness and you want to learn more about this debilitating condition. Depression is known as the silent disease. Did you know that every 50 seconds, someone in the world is taking their life? We must do something and normalize the conversation about mental health so that we can reduce the number of suicides in this country. Stay tuned for another episode of Win Over Depression. Today, we'll be talking about impact. So let us first define what is meant by impact. Impact is the effect or influence on one person, thing, action on another. The second definition of impact is having a strong effect on someone or something. And that's what we're talking about today on Win Over Depression. How does your decision, something that you decide in your life, how does it impact your friends or family members who may suffer from depression? Suggesting that you be aware of the impact that you have on someone who suffers with the mental illness. In addition to that, I want you to, just in general, think about the impact of how you interact, the words that you use, the statements that you make, and how that may impact another person. Sometimes when we're in conversations, it's all about us and not about the other person. We don't even apply active listening because we are waiting to get our turn to speak and really not paying attention to what the other person is saying. So impact really has an effect on not just people who suffer with the mental illness, but just people in general. So how often do you sit back and reminisce about the previous week and your interactions with others? Do you self-evaluate and think about what you could have said differently or an action or behavior that you could have changed? When we do not self-evaluate, then oftentimes we are not aware of the impact that we have on other people. Depressed individuals may be more sensitive to the actions and words of others. Yes, and one of the things that those who suffer with mental health really seek is validation and support from their family and friends, so that they aren't really judging them and saying, well, I don't know why you suffer with a mental illness. All you have to do is just think positive thoughts. That's something that does help. But the more that you allow the other person to tell you how they feel and you validate those feelings, the better they're able to realize that they too can get past their situation. And it can help alleviate their feelings of worthlessness and hopelessness. Because when those who suffer from depression are around someone who doesn't understand what they're going through, it can really exacerbate their feelings of sometimes inadequacy or rejection. And it will also reinforce the negative thought pattern that they're already experiencing. So that's very important to validate the feelings of those who suffer with the mental illness, because the truth is, you'll never understand it unless you really are going through it. So for me, I completely understand it because, as I've said many times, I've suffered from depression for most of my adult life, but I've worked very hard to be able to still function at a very high level. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that I am free of symptoms, because I experience symptoms on occasion, just like everyone else. So one of the things I just wanted to share is that probably 3 to 4 years ago, I would have symptoms of depression and I would be in an episode of depression for, sometimes 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, but I've gotten to a point to where I can bounce back and get back on track within 24 to 48 hours. And that just takes skill, it takes determination, and it takes you pushing yourself to do something even though you may not feel like it. And so you can do the same thing. So if you're wondering if you can reduce your episodes of depression, you definitely can, but it does take work on your part. So we're still talking about impact. We're talking about the impact of our words, decisions, and behavior on other people. So sometimes when we are trying to deal with our mental health, we have coping mechanisms that we try to put into place to guard our heart so that we don't end up having a triggering event. Because if we are not aware of what's going on around us, it's very easy for us to fall prey to a situation that may not even be our own doing. And that's why it's really important when we are managing and navigating life that we are careful about who we allow to speak into our life in general. Because oftentimes we have emotional situations that are caused by something happening to someone in our family or a situation that someone else is going through. We have to be really careful about not allowing that to cause our mental health to take a seat back and be something that we have to deal with. So when it comes to triggering events, there are sometimes actions of others that can trigger depressive episodes and cause that individual to have a setback. And so we have to really be mindful, because sometimes if it's rejection, criticism, conflicts within our relationships, they can intensify our feelings of sadness, worthlessness, or guilt. And it could be a situation where maybe we are overthinking what we're feeling, and another person isn't even aware of the impact of their behavior. And sometimes we may be able to confront it with that person, and sometimes we don't confront it because we feel like maybe we're just too sensitive. And so we just don't bring it up, but we allow it to continuing to happen over and over again. And also the roles that the stigmas in society plays, it can also influence how the decisions of others impact us, because of the fear of judgment or discrimination may lead individuals to hide their condition or avoid seeking help, which makes them more vulnerable to the negative effects of others' decisions. So we have to really just be mindful that the impact of others' decisions on depressed individuals is complex and multifaceted. Because depression is an emotional condition, there's going to be an emotional reaction to those who are in this situation. And so one of the things that you can do is to think about the impact that what you say or do is going to have on the person that you say that you love. So if you're going to be in that person's life, it's very important that you be a support system to that person. And yes, it definitely should be vice versa. You should also be receiving the same from the person that is in your life. But just be mindful about how supportive relationships, effective communication, and just having a general understanding of what another person is going through, and just being able to say, I may not understand, but I will empathize, and I will allow you time to figure out whatever it is that you have going on. So anytime that you can be supportive is going to be the best thing that you could ever do from someone who suffers with the mental illness. Is be aware of your impact. And if you need to refrain from saying something that you think may be inappropriate or it might not be the right time to say it, then don't say it, because they may have a setback that may put them back an entire week, whereas you're not understanding why that is the case. So please be mindful of how your words, actions, statements, how that affects other people in general, not just people who suffer from a mental illness. I never like to end my podcast without thanking you so very much for listening. You are the best part of Win Over Depression. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. You can also find Win Over Depression on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, as well as on Pinterest at TT Mental Health Expert. Please also be aware that we are now on TikTok at Win Over Depression. There are over 100 videos there that will also encourage you to manage your depression and symptoms in a much more creative and intentional way. In addition to that, our journal, the All About Me Mental Health Planner, is finally available. And this is going to allow you to track your mood, be able to read some affirmations, and really help you for a period of 30 days at a time, really manage your symptoms and figure out and be able to pinpoint exactly what's going on in your life that is causing you the stress and the strain. And I always say how important it is to surround yourself with people who exude positivity, and don't be afraid to purge relationships that are toxic, because one toxic relationship in your life can keep your depression and the journey to overcome and manage it. It can prolong it for a long period of time. So you definitely want to be aware to get out of any toxic relationships. The All About Me Mental Health Planner can be found on TikTok by simply clicking the link in my bio. You can also find it in the show notes for this podcast. And if you have a pen and a pencil and you want to write it down, you can also find it at www.pensight.com. So that's pensight.com / the letter X and another / and Win Over Depression. That is the direct link. So please tune in next Friday for another episode of Win Over Depression. If you would like to become a patron for Win Over Depression, please go to www.patreon.com. That's patreon.com / Tamera Trotter. And as little as $5 to $10 per month will help us to continue producing this valuable content. And last but not least, if you are contemplating suicide, please contact the suicide hotline or call your accountability partner. Please do not take your life. The impact of you taking your life on other people will far outweigh what you're feeling right now. I guarantee you that if you just stop, go to bed, go to sleep, watch a movie, read something positive, call a friend, you can get to that better place. When you take your life, it is final. You never come back from that. And that is transferring the pain that you are experiencing onto someone else. So I just encourage you, please do not take your life. Your life's important. So please stay in the game of life. Giving up is never an option. Take care.